everyone. I'm Kathleen, and today Larry and I are here with Lormarev Jones. Hi, Lormarev.
Good afternoon. How are you?
How are you doing?
I am good. I am
That's
okay.
great.
I got some sunshine, so I'm
Oh, good.
excellent.
You are
Is that the
excellent.
sun I'm seeing now, or is that a lamp?
This is a lamp, but I did go to, I went to Cameron Village to visit a student who works at the Village Deli. I was actually giving her advice about grad school, which feels, I do not feel qualified yet to give that type of advice, but she wanted some tips.
Nice.
So, yeah.
The weirdest thing is if you ever become a parent, is taking your child to a school dance. When the first time you do that, you feel like, I was just doing that myself 10 years ago.
And that's really what it feels like. I was just asking, people that like Maggie Rasnick, and Maggie Rasnick is my mentor, about, like, Maggie Rasnick, I'm pretty sure wrote one of my letters that got me into Sarah Lawrence College.
I love that.
But that, that was almost a decade ago. I went into grad school in 2012. It's
Where does the time go? Oh my gosh.
so
Wow.
I remember being young and thinking how old I would be when it turns 2000. It's like, wow, I'll be so old.
You're not there yet, Larry. You're not there yet.
no, you're really not. But
No?
sometimes I will, like, someone will say a year in the future, like, it's usually unfortunately related to climate change, like, this is going to happen in 20, and I'm like, oh, at least I'll be gone by then. Like, that's actually how I started thinking, is, oh, at least I'll have succumbed, I'm sure. So yeah, it's terrifying.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Sure.
So when did you first get into theater? What does that journey look like?
So I consider Raleigh my home. I moved here when I was 11, so I did middle school, high school, and college here, undergrad here in Raleigh, in the city. But before I lived here, I lived in Harlem, and this is pre-Giuliani Harlem. This is Harlem with Black people, not with hipsters.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just don't recognize it when I go there now. So I was not walking myself home. That was not happening in elementary school, and so I was enrolled in an after-school program that was in some way connected to my school. I went to a Catholic school too, as in elementary school, which was strange because we are not Catholic. But yeah, so anyway, it started out as like a church choir. Like, we just sang a bunch of hymns at Christmas and at Easter because we were a Catholic school. But the founders of the program basically morphed it into a show choir.
Oh.
So yeah, so like when Glee came out, I was like, oh, I know this life. I mean, we were younger, but
Yeah.
So that was my introduction really to performance. We sang like this is the 90s. So we sang like golden age musicals. Like, this is before every movie that you knew was a musical.
Right.
So like Damn Yankees, songs from Damn Yankees and Little Shop of Horrors. But that was really like my introduction to performance. I don't know that it's my introduction to theater, but that was when I was like, so I do this and then people clap, I'm into that. So
Yes.
So that was really like, I mean, I consider that the beginning. And with the invention of Facebook, I was able to reconnect because, so I did that from 2nd to 5th grade, and then we moved to Raleigh. And so I wasn't in that choir anymore, and I lost touch. I'm still in touch with one friend from that period of time, and that's the person on this earth that has known me the longest, other than my parents. And, but yeah, I couldn't be in the choir anymore, and I was pen pals with a lot of them when I first moved here. And I was able to reconnect with that choir director, who was like, wait, you have a master's degree in theater? And I was like, yeah, this is your fault. Like, it was great.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not on Facebook anymore, but it was nice to reconnect with her and say, like, thank you for, thanks for introducing me to this thing.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So other than high school and college, what's the first show you were in?
The first show I was in post-college.
Right. Oh, you can throw college in there if you want, but I'm
No,
thinking a show where.
No, that's fine. That's a really good question, because basically I graduated from college and I felt like I wasn't good enough to perform. And because I'd gotten a BA, I wasn't a conservatory kid. I just started stage managing. Also, the money's better there. So, so I stage managed my whole first year out of school. So I'm like, what was it? I mean, technically, I guess it was Into the Woods, because my college did Into the Woods the year after I graduated, and they invited alums to come back. So I played the witch in Meredith College's production of Into the Woods in 2006. And then, and then Bury the Dead with REP. Right. And then right after that, Petite Rouge with Raleigh Little Theater, directed by one Kathleen Rudolph. So I went from being a witch to being a reporter with a potty mouth. I just remember having to say GD for the first time, and that like really messed with me. And then a grandma, slightly, slightly stereotypical grandma. Yeah.
I love that role.
Bam, bam, bam. Who dat? Never gets old. Seriously, never gets old. Just ever. We sang about hot sauce and people clapped. I do not understand.
I don't know either. It was a very fun show to do, though. I loved that we knew the playwright and she knew the author of the book, and it was just such a kind of serendipitous
thing. And when you think about the people in that show, I mean the young people in that show, I mean, again, feeling old, Zach has a doctorate in opera performance or something like that, and Allison is making films in LA, and Aaron is in New York on Broadway, and I'm like, gosh, like what's youth like? I don't know. I don't have any idea anymore.
As long as they thank us when they're accepting their award.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Maggie Raznick as your mentor.
I did. Yeah. I jumped the gun, my bad.
No,
but yeah,
I love it.
I mean, and another person that I met, I mean, that's why REP is such, is, so near and dear to my heart, because it's where I met all my family, like all of my theater family. And Maggie is, she's a very guarded person, and she's really let me into her life in a way and shared her career with me in a way that has been really, really helpful. And she's, I'd say that she's part of the reason that I even thought that I could go to grad school at all. Oh. And I mean, I still get career advice from her now. Like, oh my God, help, you did this to me, help. So yeah, definitely. And I met her, because she was in RAP.
Right. And so did she or anybody else ever give you really great advice that you are carrying on to this day about theater or acting or teaching?
The best, honestly, the piece of advice that I have carried with me, I actually got from Kathy Rogers, who used to run the theater program at Meredith. She was my student advisor. And she said, it's not how good you are, it's how good you are to work with. And I've never forgotten that. And since I've met people that are not good to work with, it's like, oh God, that's really true. You're really talented, but I can't stand you. I don't ever want to work with you or your company again, is a thought I've had many times. So that's the best. That is like, when people ask me like, what is your piece of advice? That's always what I say is like, yes, the, craft is important, skill is important. But if you are a pain in the butt, it just doesn't matter. Like,
I will literally say those words though, like to children when I have auditions. Like, I don't care how good you are. If you're gonna make
There's too many good actors who are great to work with for actors who are difficult to work with to
get work at all. It's very true.
One of the first shows I did was Getting Out, and I was up against a very well-established actor from Durham, and the director and I became friends afterwards. He said, I cast you because you seem like you'd be more fun to work with than the other guys. Like,
that's great. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, they always like, I don't remember like, oh, what's the saying where it's like, the way to decipher someone's character is how they treat people that they can't get anything from. And I've always thought about that. Like, how do you treat people that can't serve you or provide you with anything in any way? And I feel like that kind of overlaps with that piece of advice too.
That's great.
I used to have real close to a fellow who directed a lot of shows, and the way he treated waiters and waitresses when we went out to restaurants told me a great deal about his personality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite theater or film actor? I know.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at the questions. I know what's coming next, and I still have this response. My mother used to tell me that Whoopi Goldberg was my real mother. So, which is, you know, we could talk about the psychology of that. We don't have that kind of time. Yeah. So, you know, so like one of the, you know, she had her Broadway debut, if I'm remembering correctly, was this series of monologues. It was a solo show where she played 5 different characters. Like, you can get it on DVD. Right. And it was like, so it's 5 different characters. And the first character was a child with a white sheet, or a white t-shirt or a white shirt on her head. And she was like, "This is my long, luxurious blonde hair." And I know, like, present tense, all the words to that monologue. I saw myself in that kid. And like, we had the VHS of this Broadway show. I'm sure it was probably illegal. And that's, I mean, that's, especially after joining the show choir, like that was the thing that I would watch to like work on my craft. I would just memorize those monologues and then recite them. And yeah. And so, I mean, she's a little crazy now because she's gotten a little too rich and she's on The View and she's surrounded by those crazy women. But in terms of like, in terms of like, because she is really, really talented. She's a really, really talented comedian. She's a really, really talented actor. And her chameleonic ability is something that I really relate to and see in myself. You know, she's, you know, I hate this phrase, but, you know, she's not like traditionally pretty. And neither am I, so I really relate. But you know, she's been in shows, she's been in film where she's been the love interest. Like, I feel like she has like range that a lot of other, especially Black female actors, have not been afforded. So she's definitely like, if I had to pick a career, I don't want to be on The View ever, but her film career, her theater career, I'll take those.
I wish she was performing more.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is like, that's become her full-time job, and
and
I miss her in performance. She actually did a 20th anniversary revival of those 5 monologues. And like, she added one, and like, she, you know, because she had written them too. They weren't like, she had written the monologues in addition to performing them. And like, she wrote another one, and it was, you know, it was during the Bush era, so like, it's obviously, I mean, all of those monologues had a political slant to them, but they weren't like, you know, hitting you over the head with it. Yeah, exactly. And when she came back to revisit it, it was very heavy-handed. Let's call it that. I would say that to her face. She probably knows. So, but I own that DVD, so I've seen both of them several times. But yeah, nice. I think that I definitely miss her in performance as well. Someone posted a clip of her in a Law and Order episode, and I was like, oh, I hadn't seen it. It was like one thing. I was like, oh, there's like one Whoopi performance that I haven't seen, because I've pretty much, oh my God, I used to watch Jumpin' Jack Flash so much as a child, and it was so inappropriate for children, and it just did not matter. Gosh, that movie is inappropriate for children.
Yeah, I have a friend who worked with her. Her name is Joyce Greer. She's a storyteller, and she worked with Whoopi on a movie that she did with Patrick Swayze. I can't remember. It has to be over 20 years ago.
Ghost.
Well, I guess it was Ghost. Yeah. I guess she was working on a movie after Ghost. That's it.
Okay.
Whoopi was still talking about how hot Patrick Swayze was.
How did you not know that? Oh my God.
No, it was a movie after that, and Whoopi was still talking about how hot she was for Patrick Swayze.
Who wasn't? I mean, we can talk about that. Beautiful man. Nothing better than a man that can dance.
Oh yeah. Do you have a worst audition story you would like to share with us?
I really don't. Is that bad? I have had auditions that did not go great, but I've never just completely busted.
That's good.
Nope, that's not true. I auditioned. I just remembered. No, that's not true. I mean, I didn't completely bust. I just got overexcited. I auditioned, so grad school stuff. You know, most grad schools require you to prepare stuff, and I do not have the gift of monologues. Like some people ace them, and you know, auditioning is a whole nother skill by itself. Right. But that's never been my gift, which is why I chose a grad school where you didn't have to prepare anything for the audition, and I got in, surprise. So, but I auditioned for Yale School of Drama. God, in January of 2009. Oh, I wish these memories would leave. And my best friend Laura Jernigan drove with me because Connecticut's like 12 hours, or where is it? New Haven is 12 hours. And so, I mean, it just like, I walked in and it was immediately like not the place for me. Like the people, like the faculty were very kind, but the other auditionees were just like, I mean, major sticks up the bum, like, yeah. And there were other, you know, usually at these types of things, I am one of few people of color, if there are any others. And there were dozens of Black people. I was like, oh, this is where we hang out. I had no idea. And they were not happy to see me, I guess, because, you know, competition. But I was just like, is this what we're going to do? We're going to like give each other, like, it's a mental thing. It's all mental. Mm-hmm. We know. Yeah. But anyway, so that was like the vibe pre-audition. And I was already like, I don't think I'm going to go here. I mean, if they let me in, sure. But these people are really unhappy. You know, you're supposed to have, I think, like 3 or 4 pieces prepared. And they were going to let you show 2 at least. And, you know, one of them had to be Shakespeare, and I was not feeling that. I'm never feeling Shakespeare, no offense. And I remember I did Phoebe's monologue from As You Like It. I did, I don't remember what my dramatic one was, but then so I did the 2 and they went, do you have something else? And like, that's a good sign when they're like, yeah. Do you have something else to show us? So then I got like amped, right? Like amped the F up. And I had just done a production of Sex, Drugs, Rock and Roll the previous fall. It's a Eric Bogosian play. Mm-hmm. Like it's an Eric Bogosian monologue play. One person show. Yeah, but when we did it, it was 4 actors and we split up the monologues. Mm. And that was a good show. And it ended, that play ends with like a dude that's like smoking, you know, something that's still illegal in most states, and like talking about the world and about like capitalism and like, you know, like the reason that they stay high is because the world is, you know, the country's awful. Wow, how some things change and stay the same. So I had done that monologue, and so that was kind of like my 3rd prepared monologue. I'd already performed it in a show, so I was like, that'll be my 3rd one. But you know, I was like, no, and asked me to do the 3rd one. And then they asked me to do the 3rd one. And remember, I just did the show in the fall, got 3 or 4 sentences out, and they left. The rest of the monologue went, you don't need this, bye. And I just sat there like getting high for what felt like an eternity, was probably 5 seconds, and then skipped to the end because I remembered how it ended. And then they were like, thank you. Like I didn't even make it to the 2nd round, but I was so excited that they had asked me to do a 3rd thing. And anyway, in hindsight, it was not the school. It was not the program that was going to make me the artist I am now. But yeah, and it wasn't like, you know, I don't know that it was so obvious. I mean, they probably knew it. They were like, oh yes, Bogosian. That's a choice. That's a pause. That's still a pause. But it wasn't, I didn't walk out of there feeling particularly embarrassed. I was just like, I can't believe I just forgot this monologue that I just did in a show. But maybe never.
You should have gone to one of the people auditioning and say, by the way, when you go into audition, it's the most important moment in your life. No. If you blow this audition, your life is over. You'll never act again.
Don't suck. Yeah.
Don't.
What's the favorite show you've been in?
Oh, I saw this question. I don't know. I really love to sing. And so
Petite Rouge, then. Petite Rouge. There you go.
No, I'm not even going to lie to you, Kathleen. Absolutely. The Gator. No, never again. Well, I wouldn't say never again, but no, not my favorite. I mean, I met Rebecca, and that's a friendship that has somehow persevered for absolutely no reason other than we like each other.
Yeah.
I mean, Into the Woods is definitely in the top 3. I had a really good time on that show, and it was the first time that I felt confident as a singer, I guess. And what was it? You're in Town at RLT, which I know everyone talks about, but it really was just one of those rare theater experiences where no one was an asshole. I'm sorry, but it's true.
Right.
Like no one was awful. We all liked each other. We all hung out after all the weekend shows. We cried and sobbed at the last show and at Strike. You know, I'm still friends with Melissa Patterson because of that show. Like it was one of the best experiences. And then so if I can curse, then Puna the Fuck Dog and Other Plays for Children with RAP is definitely, like, I mean, seriously, I mean, I didn't even have a big part in that show. It was more, you know, it's ensemble, so it was an ensemble piece, but such a good time. And we got to sing and dance in that one too, so it was great.
I played a frog in the play.
You did play a frog, and Jesse Gephardt was a bush. My mother calls when I'd say, "Yo, yeah, Jesse." She's like, the boy that was the bush, right? Like she literally calls him. Like she's seen him in other things. In my mother's mind, oh, the boy that played the bush, not, you know, the boy that played the school shooter. Like, I mean, Jesse went on to do played the bush.
That's great.
Yeah, but I loved that show. I actually just found. I will send you this picture, Kathleen. So the design for the show, because it was called And Plays for Children, was like larger than life, like cartoon things. And my mother has been going through the attic and trying to get rid of stuff, because what else do you do when you can't leave your house? And she found this huge, like, cartoon size toaster that Miyuki drew and cut out with an X-Acto knife and built. And she was like, "Do you want this?" And I was like, "I don't even know what show that's from." And then my brother had to say, "Oh, that's from Puna the Fuck Dog," you know. And I was like, "Oh, yeah. I don't know why we needed a toaster in that show, but apparently I was really attached to it because it ended up in your attic." Like, it wasn't a part of my scene. My scene was about computers, not toasters. It's not like it was my prop.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I have the Puna toaster, and it's going in the trash because I'm not keeping. What do I need that for? But I took a picture with it. I texted it to Glenn Matthews, and I texted it to Miyuki because, you know, she built it and colored it. But yeah, crazy. So those are probably the top 3. I mean, I've been in shows. Oh yeah, and Mr. Burns, which is, God, the last time I was really, really on stage, at least here in Raleigh. I got to play Bart Simpson in that show, and that was. And we got to sing, like the whole third act of that was a musical. So yeah, when I get to sing, I'm usually pretty happy.
Yeah.
Is there a role you're really dying to play?
No, I don't do that anymore. I mean, that's the thing, is I went to grad school so that I could write my own work, so that I didn't have to wait to be cast and stuff.
Right.
So I know that sounds really cocky, but I think because there were so many things that I felt like I was capable of doing, and the theater that already exists, I feel like very often doesn't really consider people of color. So I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go to grad school and learn how to write for myself so that I'm always cast when I want to be cast in something. I'm trying to think, because like there are plays that I read and I'm like, oh, but I feel like I'm kind of shifting It's not, I am shifting. I'm too old to be an ingenue now. And for so long, I think those were, like, at least, the well-written ones, the ones with some oomph, are the kinds of shows that that I was drawn to. And so now I'm like, oh yes, I am old enough to play a mother, because I'm old enough to have had children, like, at a reasonable age. So, I mean, there's like, there's some August Wilson women that I would love to play. I would love to play Rose in Fences.
Yeah.
I would love to be in any Jackie Sibley's Drury play. She's a really great playwright. Her work hasn't been done a lot here. Playmakers did do one of her plays a few years ago, but she's still mostly, her work has been done in New York. And honestly, any Dominique Morisseau play. I've directed her work. I directed a show of hers at RLT. But these are all Black female playwrights. Anything that any of those women have written, for sure.
Cool. When you are on stage, what is the type of actor you hope to be on stage with?
The one that doesn't suck. No, the one who, who the people are, like the people that are not doing it for attention, that are doing it for the craft. David Henderson comes to mind, like, the generous people, like the people that believe the adage that, you're there to make your partner look good, and then your partner will make you look good in turn. We're always taught in acting class, the scene is not about you, it's about the other person. And I think it takes a while to understand what that really means, but once you're with someone that understands what it means, it's really nice.
It is.
I told Kathleen this one time. Somebody told me, like, you're not really a leading actor because you listen and you react to what the other actor's saying.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's what acting was about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I kind of knew what they meant, but it's like, wow.
Yeah.
That's a big
Alan Rickman said, acting is active listening.
Right. We all have great moments on stage. Can you tell us one of your great moments and why?
I don't know. What defines a great moment?
When you don't suck, like you said.
I mean, that's like 90% of the battle, dude. Some people,
I know.
We try. No, like, and it's just weird. Like, I hear that word and I just think of things that are really stupid. Like, in Into the Woods, there's a bunch, like, it's integrated fairy tales. So there's a bunch, like, it's really there's no one lead, there's a bunch of leads. And they're like from 3 different stories, and most of them make it to the end of the play, but not all of them. But like, so like all of those characters, the baker, the baker's wife, Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella, etc., like, were mic'd because this was a 600-seat theater, and they did not have to mic me for that. So like, that's like one of my greatest moments. It's like, I sang so loud that they did not need to mic me over a 10-piece orchestra. Like, that is one of my greatest moments.
That
so proud of that. And I later found out, like, going, relating it back, like, Gary and Glenn saw that show. Like, that's the first time Maggie ever saw me perform, was in this show, where, like, I think that's one of the reasons I got into REP, is because they had seen me in that show. Because it had, Meredith is a women's college, so it had a bunch of local men from the area. It's like Terry Milner, who was the president of SETC at the time, or the ED of, he was the baker, and Byron Jennings was in it because Byron Jennings is in everything. It had a lot of, we needed men, and it had a lot of local men in it. So, I mean, we sold out. We only had 4 performances, but we sold out all 4 performances. So 2,400 people saw that show, and they saw me do it without a mic. Like, that's one of my proudest moments, is that I didn't need a mic. I know this greatest ever, but definitely one of my proudest moments is I sing that loud.
That's very cool.
And then it is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second or third REP show I did was about the Columbine shooting.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't know, again, like great doesn't feel like an appropriate word to use for that, but that, I knew that we were doing a show that was important. I mean, and that was 2007, like it had not, like that,
Right.
that particular shooting had not yet been a decade since it had happened. I mean, I was a sophomore in high school when that happened. It was very fresh in my mind. And like, that was the first time that I really felt like the art that I was making and that I was participating in, like, had a larger purpose than just entertainment, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I will always be, again, I don't know if proud's the right word, but I will always be grateful for that experience, because that was sort of the first time. I mean, I think it was the first time that I was working on a show that was in any way related to real events. Mm-hmm. And those real events were like super close to home for me. So having been a high schooler when it happened. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think theater is all about storytelling, and sometimes it's fun stories and sometimes they're not. You know, and
yeah.
So, but what is the funniest thing that ever went wrong on the stage?
You know, I don't know if I have an answer to this question, because I have not, knock on the wood.
Yes.
I have not had like a major blooper. I have had major bloopers as a tech person, like as a stage manager, where like called the cue too early. Oh, look, there's someone in the middle of a costume change on stage and now there's light on them. Great. But never where I was the person with egg on their face. Like, it's actually just I put egg on someone else's.
There you go.
So more of my theater foibles are actually as a tech person, which is, you know, why I shouldn't do that anymore. I should stick to the performance. But no, I do have a good one. I keep thinking like, oh no, I don't have anything. So I wrote a show. It's called My Geriatric Uterus. It's a solo play. I'm the only actor. It's a solo play. It's a musical. I wrote the lyrics. My partner wrote the music, and it's a puppet show. The puppet is my uterus. So got it. Hey, it's coming out soon. I shot it. We filmed it for virtual performance.
Nice.
So look for that Kickstarter. So it premiered last summer at the Cincinnati Fringe Festival, and you know, it's Fringe, so like, you know, you get like a certain amount of performances, and we performed. Oh, look, the card's right here. We had 5 performances, and the first 2 shows, you know, it's early in the festival, they were full but not sold out, and then the second week, like all 3 shows were sold out super, you know, very soon. Excuse me. And the final show was also the final night of the festival. And I think, like, I don't remember if, like, you know, I had friends come like from Raleigh, from New York to see it, from Chicago. Names that you would know, Kathleen, like Stephanie Kluggish came from Chicago, Laura Best-Jernigan came. Lots of people, like, I was very surprised by the people that were willing to drive to see me. But by the time we got to the final performance, like all those people had already come. Like, in other words, to say, I was confident. I was feeling good. And I was feeling good. And so the show starts, we're sold out. I have sung the opening number, or maybe I haven't. it's the literal like paragraph before the opening number. And again, it just goes like so cocky. And I've written it. Everyone's like, oh, it should be so easy to memorize stuff. No, it's not. It's still words that you've put on paper and now you have to get them into your head. And like I'd worked this out with the stage manager. Like I had, you know, a phrase I would say that she would then prompt me because I was like, this will happen. I don't know when. But we had gotten to the final performance and it had never happened, of course. And I went, oh, there it goes. And I'm doing the action. I'm still setting up for the opening number. Yeah, it was before the opening number. And I finally said, Brianna, that was the stage manager's name. And she went, you were talking about this or whatever it is. And I was like, okay. And it just was the most, it was, again, final performance. Like the award ceremony for the Fringe Festival was after that. And I was just like, yeah, like, I don't deserve any award. And then, of course, I won one. But it was just insanity. It was insanity. I just thought, of course, yeah, the Lord is all about keeping me humble just when I'm getting to that point where I'm intolerable. So, yeah.
Well, I tell Larry this all the time. One of my children is an athlete, and I would compare athletes and actors, which he did not want to hear in the least. But, you know, he played hockey, and one season he was on a team that never lost, and they were just excellent. But I kept saying to him, don't get cocky, because on any day, somebody's going to win.
And it can be on your butt. Right? Oh, no, it's so true.
It is so true.
And I just remember, and for me, I think I keep saying cocky, and I don't know if that's really true, but I was definitely, like the other 4 performances, I was like, oh, so-and-so's in the audience, like, you know, like that kind of thing. Oh my God, Laura Jernigan's in the audience, like this really needs to not suck, like this is my best friend, and blah, 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 blah. And I just didn't have that for the final show. Like everyone that I knew, like I was like, well, I was gonna give them a good performance, but there wasn't anyone that I was trying to impress, right, so to speak. At that last show. And it's like, no, you still have to give it the same. You still have to be as afraid, because otherwise.
Be afraid.
Yeah, I learned a long time ago not to compliment my own work while I'm doing that, because I've been on stage and went, hey, that went really well. It's like, oh, rats, what's my next line?
Yeah, exactly.
If you could go back in time and talk to your younger self when you first started performing, what advice would you tell yourself?
Don't believe the grown-ups. Don't be limited by the grown-ups. Now that I'm an educator and I am a lot more jaded, by the theater industry, by academia, and I've only been here a year. I really try to keep my jadedness away from my students. So like part of the reason I was late is because, like I said, I went to Village Deli and met with a student outside, socially distanced, but met with her to talk about, you know, she wants to go to grad school. And I feel like she's at an added deficit because NC State doesn't have a theater major. Mm-hmm. So, and that's part of the reason I really wanted to help the student is, you know, I at least went to a theater program. Like I had a sense of, you know, what the future might look like, although I told myself I was never going to school again. But anyway, so, you know, in talking to this student about, you know, about what the next steps are and choosing material, you know, I was purposely, you know, not keeping anything from them, but just, you know, I think that when you have been doing something for a while, it's very easy to get worn down by it and, you know, to deal with your love lost. And sometimes I have those moments where I'm just like really upset, like, especially now when like there's so many, I mean, specifically in Wake County, like so many like arts-based programs for high school students. Like, you know, up until recently, you know, Wake County Public Schools was like doing shows at Raleigh Memorial Auditorium, like, you know, like they were doing Les Mis and Aida, like with high school kids, and, you know, anyone in, and anyone in the county could audition. And I would be like, where was that? I would have done that in a second. Like, that sort of thing. And, you know, especially for students of color, like, I don't have any bitterness towards my high school theater teacher, but she was not really interested in helping me explore and expand my range. She was like, this is a Black girl, so she's going to do these 2 things or these 3 things. And it took me a while to sort of like acknowledge that and come to grips with that, and you know, aspire to never be that kind of teacher to any student of color, or, you know, nationality or whatever. So yeah, I think that's what it is don't let yourself be limited by what adults who have been doing this longer than you think that you can do. Yeah.
If I just hadn't listened to my stepfather, all the stuff he said to me when I told him I wanted to be an actor, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah, I just think, again, I think, you know, everyone has history that they are carrying. I hate the phrase baggage, but everyone has history that they are taking into their next experiences. And like, there are good uses of my history. There are good ways to utilize it. Like, I have a lot of knowledge about programs. Like, this student didn't know that UNCG had a grad program. And I said, well, if you're not absolutely desperate to get out of here, maybe look at that program, because the in-school tuition is tight. If you're not wanting to spend a lot of money. And, you know, the letters mean the same thing everywhere. So, you know, stuff like that. So like, that's a good use of my history. It is not a good use of my history to say to this student, you're African-American, so like, this is going to suck for you regardless. And, you know, I hope you do better than me. And like, I could say that, but, you know, and I think also these students already know. And that's why you're seeing so many discussions around racism on Broadway and racism in theater, and poor practices in casting and that side of thing, because the people that have been around for a minute that are my age and older are just tired of it. So I think, and it's, you know, and it's being publicly discussed. So I think the Gen Z students, they already know, they know what the score is. And so I feel like it's my job to just encourage and support and empower.
And point them in the right direction.
Yes, and say, here are the options. Yeah, it's gonna suck, and here are the options. And if you can't, don't move to New York. Like, not in a bad way, just like supporting yourself through grad school in New York City is a different it's a different financial commitment that I really wish I had just thought through a little more before. But no regrets. But like, so here's how much I told her. I just gave her my number. I said $78,000 in grad loans that are unsubsidized, and therefore the interest rate is variable. What's variable? Okay, let's talk about it. So yeah. So yeah.
That's great.
What's the first thing you want to do after we get through this crisis and the pandemic and everything else?
Yeah, I saw this question and I was like, yes, hug everyone. Hug people that I'm not having sex with. I love my boyfriend so much. I just miss, but seriously, I miss platonic touch a lot. You can ask Maggie Rasnick's. I have hugged her legs several times because I miss hugging my friends. I went to a women's college, so we were always touching each other. So I'm just like, what is this? Like, even saying goodbye to the student, it was like, yeah, I guess I can't hug you, but know that I want to. And so like, I just tapped her on the shoulder, which felt very much almost like a dog. It was terrible. I was like, good luck, and I'll see you in 2 weeks so we could talk more about the research that you've done. Just hugging people. Yeah. Hugging people, sitting in a theater, watching something. Like, I know everyone is really like clawing to get back on stage. And I'm just like, I'm okay. Like, I wasn't acting a lot anyway. Just going to see stuff. I've probably saved hundreds of dollars not going to see theater, honestly, truth be told. But yeah, sitting in a theater, like collective laughter in a theater, like that's my cocaine. Like, I really miss that. Yeah, shared experiences and hugs, for sure.
Well, I will be on that list as soon as this is over. And
for sure. We have to go to Whole Foods, you and me and Maggie and Jay Chichula. Oh God, I would love to hug him. Larry, you can come too. Those are just usually the people that I see.
Yes.
At the Whole Foods.
Thank you so much for joining us and giving us all this great insight into what makes
what a goof I was.
Yeah.
Present tense, goof I am. Yes.
I love it.
We're all goofs.
Yes. But I do hope to see you soon in the real world. And take care of yourself. And
drink water.
Drink water.
Hydration is important.
Yep.
It is. And thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Larry.
you. Bye.
Bye, Larry.
Bye.
Bye.